Sooners of Oklahoma at 12-0 and still looking for respect nationwide.
What is going on, Sooner Nation? Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Barry Mack Show. As always, myself, Barry, personal trainer, sports performance coach out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and alongside me, former Sooner wide receiver, 2000 national champ, Mr. Damian Mackey. How are we doing tonight, D-Mac?
Burning the midnight oil, huh?
Facts.
Hey, salute to you. Your energy is high for it to be after midnight in Oklahoma. So,
Yep.
salute to you. I had a day, man. I've been one of my brokers from Connecticut hung out with me for the week, and so one had me up all night asking questions, wanting to be mentored, and then today I took to see the city and this. By the way, the Bay Area is beautiful again. They've cleaned it up since COVID.
Really?
They've gotten a lot of the homeless situation under control. A lot of the city is much more beautiful than it was even prior to COVID. They've cleaned it up a ton. It was really cool to hang out in Oakland and do some of the things around the lake, and then head to the city and hit Pier 39 and Union Square and some of the other cool places to see in the Bay Area. So it was a good day, but I'm tired as hell. So let's get to it.
I feel that, man. Real quick before we get started, I actually been going at it tonight. Put on an event, guys. If you see this shirt right here, LifeWise, we are a faith-based organization that goes into schools and we give the gospel to kids. There are legal loopholes that allow for this to occur here in the state of Oklahoma, and it's just straight gospel message. We don't put any kind of a spin on it. It's very cool. And also wanted to shout out a gentleman who happens to be named Jerry West, who has concocted a wonderful book. This book has songs to help kids learn scripture. I'm going to give it a quick shout out and plug right here. It's for all. We have a lot of people age 34 to 54, D-Mac. And that age, what do they have? Young kids. Children. Exactly. So this book right here, guys, if you got questions on how to get a hold of it, great songs in there for learning scripture. If you need something to be a part of your church, something you want to bring in, absolutely give it a check out. Listen to some of the songs today. Very easy to learn. Comes with CDs. Very cool. And I'm sure you could, get the MP3 and rip it somewhere too. So without further ado, though, D-Mac, the folks are here for the game preview. We have Sooner football to be played. If you're living in Oklahoma, it's getting played today. So 5 o'clock Central Standard Time at Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. The Sooners will kick it off against Illinois State. And it's going to be a good one. But D-Mac, have some news we first have to cover. And these are just some news and notes that have come through the pipeline in the last, I'd say, 8 to 10 hours or so. OU may be starting the season with some misses on the offensive line. There are a handful of starters, and we can go ahead and name them at this point. Simmons has been on everybody's radar. There is a chance he does not play. And here in a second, we'll take that a step further. Fasusi, everybody knows what has happened with him. He fainted, had heat exposure in practice, and it wasn't himself, to say the least. And then lastly, some possible small knick-knack injury. If they were playing in Alabama, an LSU, somebody of that ilk this week, he probably would play. But that is Hito Zeta, a player who you believe can end up having a big season for the Sooners. So, D-Mac, you hear those initial thoughts on the offensive line. What are your thoughts?
I'm disappointed, to be very honest with you, in the NIL and transfer portal era of the game, to bank on a player who 1 or 2 more concussions could potentially mean the end of their career. To me, we're in a space where the risk is just not worth the reward, especially when there's a lot of guys, that you're considering. To me, that's a red flag big enough to say we're going to go ahead and pass at a place like OU. We need tackle depth. The freshmen have come in and impressed, which is good, but we need, I'm not even going to say needed, we currently need a senior laden or veteran presence at the tackle position because we're going to play in the SEC and those DNs are going to be coming off that edge. And if you're banking on Howland, who never really played well, well against top shelf defense, that's gonna be a concern, a legitimate concern. That doesn't mean he didn't improve. That doesn't mean he didn't get bigger. But you would prefer to have had somebody who has experience and isn't essentially one hit away from retiring from football, and all puns intended, from the guy who got a hit and retired from football. You're looking at him, you know what I'm saying? So that's disappointing. As it relates to Ozita, I don't. You know what? I think it's a good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is Ozita. I think if we needed him to play, he could, and if we can give him an additional week of rest, we should. It's also good because he and EPL are oars, and it could be really good for Eddie Pierre to go out there and ball out and create a situation where, you know, we have depth at the guard position. I think the bad is for Susi. This is a game as a true freshman he needs to play in, get his feet wet, have a chance to kind of get a feel for college ball before he's asked or tasked with being, you know, responsible for probably top 3 defensive line we're going to see all year. 2 or 3. I mean, like it's a very good defensive line against Michigan next week. And then the ugly Simmons. Simmons is a guy who we heard the first week of camp was going to be a guy who could potentially be the best player we had on the offensive front. And for him to go down before he ever get a chance to play, as a guy who transferred in, as a guy who we assume got multiple 6 figures in NIL money, that's not a good deal as it pertains to us and our GM and our game plan centered around creating the necessary pieces we needed to compete. Now, that's the edge of the stick where, we're going over the deep end. Hopefully, and I'm not gonna wear crimson colored glasses on this. Hopefully he improves. Hopefully he gets better. Hopefully, we're being extra precautious and he's ready next week too, and that's going to be really good. But as of what we've been hearing, it's not good. And that's multiple outlets and individuals saying potentially it's not good. Problematic. All that said, 10-second version, we better dominate their defensive line. I don't give a damn if those 3 guys are out. The offensive line better move people, create lanes, and score points, period.
Yeah, I want to touch on Simmons real quick because there are a lot of questions about that. Like, what constitutes a guy retiring? What constitutes a guy, really scaling it back, if not stepping from the game entirely? And regardless of what you all will hear, there are no hard and fast rules of, he's had this many concussions, so he's out, right? He's had 3 concussions, so that means he's not playing anymore. That there are signs that they look for with guys. There are things that they check out on a daily basis, memory, function, to just how quickly their reflexes are responding. There's a lot of pieces to analyzing a guy and a lot of really hard decisions that go into saying we recommend that you hang it up entirely. D-Mac, you went through that. And for Simmons to be even close to that situation, having just arrived with Oklahoma, you're right. It is problematic for a team that has to have depth along the offensive line and had to get good in a hurry. One of the questions is who will lead the team in rushing yards. And I think if the offensive line is not gelled and well put together and they're not moving guys, that could end up being a player like Mateer, because you simply have to throw the football and he's going to be outside the pocket escaping. And you don't want that all season for the SEC. He's going to be a good runner, But OU's best case scenario is the Baker and Kyler years where you pick your spots, you run strategically, you keep your quarterback healthy, and you get to the end of the year with a guy who's ready to ball out. That being said, DMAC, want to go over Illinois State and what they have to offer the Sooners in the way of competition. And, we'll give the highlights. I don't think we need to go in depth on the scouting report. If you heard Venable's press conference, he dove into it pretty good. They have a long-term coach in Brock Spack, who's been there 17 years. This is a team that competes and wins titles. They're a team that is picked to finish fourth in the Missouri Valley Conference, and that's a pretty tough conference overall on the FCS side. They've got a quarterback who's a dual threat. They've got a couple defensive players who were FCS All-Americans, and they Niekamp, I believe, is their linebacker, who's a coach's kid, one of the guys who just general on the field at that level. So DMAC, when you went into a game like this as a player, right? I'm thinking UTEP, Arky State, games, Indiana State, I believe in '99,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So where you guys, beat the brakes off them to open up the year. When you go into games like this and you're looking at film, and you've talked about Spurrier Jr. having the mindset like DMAC, you better destroy this guy, right? But when you go into a game like this, is there an expectation or even a pressure that you got to have, a handful of highlight plays? You got to finish the game with 3 or 4 catches for, 80 to 120 yards. If you're the lead X or the lead Z for a team, do you go in that saying, man, if I don't have a game, it's going to be considered a disappointment? Where do players stand with that?
I don't know so much that you're so stat reliant in terms of playing well. Again, the game of football is such that sometimes you make an impact without being the direct ball carrier or ball receiver or whatever. There are plenty of games where I may have had 2 catches, but my impact on the game was dramatic in terms of taking a safety out of a play, again, going down and weeding out a backer. And as a player, the coaches are going to see it on film, and it's going to really, impact your ability to, stay in the top group. Now, that being said, I don't think there was ever a game week 1 where I was like, I better score. 99, I played one play. And they threw me the ball. I catch a X Larry, I think I caught an X Larry, which is kind of a slip screen. You take 2 steps, come back, the offensive lineman push up in front of you, the receivers block down, try to create an alley. Okay. And I wanted to take it to the house. It was designed to make 8 to 10 yards. I got up in there and I gave somebody some juice. And Barry, I bounce back on somebody, and the D tackle demolishes me. And the crazy thing is, he doesn't even hit me with his helmet or shoulder in my thigh. I think like his knee does. Like he's like, he clobbers me, and I had a big ass thigh bruise. I couldn't walk. Could not walk. Like, yo, I got one play and I'm out of there. But I expected to score. 2000 season, we play UTEP. I freaking score. They call it back. Pisses me off. Then I have another play that should be a walk-in 80-yard bomb. We run a slip screen and go. Josh underthrows it, and I just make a dumbass play. The guy strips me. It's a pretty sweet strip, by the way. It's my only turnover in 2 years. I mean, I'm running with the ball, and I don't have it tucked, and he just kind of takes it from me, and he has the ball before he hits the ground. It's a pretty sweet play. Yes. To answer your question, yes. Week 1, damn it, I want to freaking score, right? Like, if you're in the game, if you're in the game plan. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were certain games. I think I told the story quite often. Red October, Texas game, I was in the game plan. I was supposed to be featured at that position. In fact, I actually had a phenomenal game. I'm responsible for like 4 or 5 of our really big plays because I learned a technique mid snap. We're running jet sweeps, and they're playing bump man. So we were in 2x2. I said, Coach, put us in 3x1. and have the receiver go across the formation and come back, because the receiver had a man running across the line of scrimmage with him, and I had my man, I would take my man, bump him into the receiver's man, and it's out the gate. That's why we're killing them. If you go back and watch the film, we're killing them on jet screens because they're playing man and they're in bump. And I'm taking my man and bumping him into the Z's man running across the formation. And he's got to take an angle 10, 15 yards to the field. It's out the gate. I got, we used to get crunch bars. When you make a play, you get a crunch bar, like a big play, right? And so I was getting crunch bars for stuff like that, just certain things. But screw that. Damn it, we're Illinois State. Yes, all of us were like, who's gonna score? Like, who's gonna, what I'm saying? Like, it was absolutely you trying to cook. Those are those games you want to be cooking. And so I'd be willing to bet, Barry. The receivers, the starter, you got Burks, you got Satania, you got I think Cavante, or who I don't know who's gonna be the
Keontae Lewis is gonna be
who
the,
are those guys gonna be?
yeah.
Man, I make names up. Whatever name I say that's who I mean.
Hey, I'm putting this out there, guys. It's gonna be. I got a strong feeling this is a numbers year, and I say we just go back to numbers anyway. Right? That's how the coaches.
Hey, you know how I am.
Hey.
You know how I am. After the game, because I watch the game, it's the numbers that I'm paying attention to. People get mad though, but you guys will live. You guys will catch up. I expect the receivers to score. I expect the offensive line to move people. I don't think if one player makes that big a difference, our O-line and scheme and our culture sucks, period. Like, we need to overcome an Illinois State team. We need to be able to say we can win without the guy we never had at tackle and our red shirt true freshman left tackle. We need to be able to win without those two guys and the guy who for the first half of fall camp was running with the twos, who's Ozita, right? Like, EPL needs to be able to step up as a second-year sophomore and make plays. Yeah. If the receivers aren't looking sweet, think about it. Week 1 last year, Burks looked sweet. Whoever we played week 1 last year, Burks had 3 tugs. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I think those guys expect to go out there and do well.
I watched this video the other day. I wish I could remember the guy's channel, but he talked about how different an offensive scheme, and I have someplace I'm going with this, how different an offensive scheme, how much it changes a running back's potential, how much it changes their ability to be an impact player. And the example that this guy used was all of the advanced metrics for Saquon Barkley when he was playing for the Giants. Saquon, when he was with the Giants, by all accounts and by all metrics, D-Mac was a very average running back. He didn't really rank in the top 20 in any category, and that's including categories that try to take the offensive line out of the equation. In other words, yards after contact, yards based on how close a man is, because they're using more basketball-esque data now in the NFL and college game. But they talk about that transition when he went from New York, where he was an average Joe, to Philadelphia, where he sets records, right? He's on the precipice of one of the greatest rushing seasons in the history of a running back in the NFL. And it was all change of scenery, of course, change in the personnel that was around you, but primarily the scheme. So in this scheme, because I don't think we've talked about it in detail, I want to get your thoughts, because this goes to a listener's question. I wish I could remember who it was, who asked about the principles of Arbuckle's system, which does seem to be rooted in the air raid, a little Lincoln Riley-esque, if you will, according to everybody who has you really looked at the system. But from your vantage point, and knowing what the Sooners have at running back, and I've done a breakdown on Barnes and Ott. You guys can find that on OU Insider, ouinsider.com. Go over there, get yourself a membership. But what do you think about that scheme change and how it impacts which players might be the most impactful out of the backfield? And do you have a thought about how this first game goes? Does OU really try to establish the run, or is it balanced from the get-go?
I think it's balanced from the get-go, just because the offense is designed to spread you out with short passes and really to find the bubble in the defense to attack, to get the defense into the positions that we want, and then to run. Again, not exactly like a Leach's offense, where Leach is kind of trying to pass short to pass long to get you backed up, and then to pass short again, and then to sneak the run on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of like Leach's philosophy. This is to pass to get you spread out enough to run and be able to double on the inside guys and get up on the backer and get through the A or B gap, or to do some RPO stuff and get guys to suck inside, pull the ball, and get outside, right? So I think some of the double teams that we're going to see are going to be a little different than what we saw last year, where last year we were really just trying to get a man on a man. Really until the Tech game, I think we're like, oh my God, look, we got a sniffer, right?
Yeah.
So they started turning a little bit more power concept week 7, week 8. But again, I am of the belief that this team needs to be able to run what they run and get yards. And the running backs need to be able to read the play and get out of trash. And so when you ask me, who do I think is going to do well? It's going to be the running back who runs to daylight. And I think we're going to get 4 different runners, potentially 5. And I think we, as the audience, are going to get to see who has the best feel for how the O-line is going to be blocking and who's going to be the runner daylight. What will drive me crazy is if we have the wrong running back in and the offense isn't clicking because a running back who is missing opportunities is getting carries. Not going to say any names. Not going to make it, tomorrow's game day, or I guess today, right? So I'm not going to give them any bad juju tonight, but it will piss me off that if they keep trotting somebody out there and they're getting 4 and 5 yards when that running back, if they could get through trash and or have a little wiggle and or accelerate or be run with power, make things happen. And so we've seen that happen a lot. But the beautiful thing is Material's going to be able to keep them off balance as well with his ability to run, the fear of him scrambling to run and scrambling to throw. So I think I said it on the board. I expect us, we're not going to run trick plays, but we're going to run combo routes to put them in compromising situations and go 1v1 with our X, 1v1 with our Z, or try to get H over the formation, right? So he's running a deep over route over the backers, or he's running a deep corner route, splitting corners and safeties. So expect big plays. I expect us to run the ball and be successful for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a game where, OU's trotting out a new system, and that has its advantages and disadvantages. You haven't been in it long enough, but to the defense, they got to go back and watch Washington State. They got to see Mateer with totally different personnel. They really don't have anything to gauge, and those Washington State teams, regardless of how, nationally OU feels about people feel about OU's offensive personnel now, it's better than Wazoo. It's better than Washington State. So I think what will be interesting is how the carries end up getting split. And I could see a scenario where a guy like Blaylock ends up being the leading rusher in a game, just because what you have in Barnes. And if I'm going to pick, I actually am going to pick Blaylock to lead the team in rushing. Only 2 reasons. One, I think those young legs in a game like this, if you don't need to play Barnes, and he is going to be an important veteran down the stretch, and Ott is already dealing with injury, you need a guy who can pick up protection, pick up blitz. You're playing Michigan next week. You don't want a young player in there who can't pick up pressures and who can't read no assignment and react. And you want Ott healthy. So I'm going to go Blaylock as my prediction for who will get the most yards. I think it might be a toss-up between him and X-Rob, depending on how X-Rob is viewed in the rotation.
I think it's X-Rob for the exact reason. So? For the exact reason you just said. Kids played SEC ball. Kids going to run through traffic. If things aren't clicking, they know a strong safety trying to glance, kind of like throw body tackle at him is not going to tackle him. He's a guy that the offense can say, hey, dude, go get us 7 yards and lean on the defense and get them tired. Like, that's a back we haven't had since a P. Ryan. We've had some guys. Kennedy Brooks was really good at just playing within his body and getting through traffic. So I'm not going to say that. That's not true. But I think he's the leading rusher. He's the safest guy to say, let's just put them back there and make them have to adjust, because it's one guy is just not going to tackle him. Let that safety come down. They're going to pull the ball out and throw it over somebody's head. So give me X Rob as far as I'm concerned, and give me 3 or 4 plays where Ott shows his acceleration, something on the edge, some type of running back screen or something like that, and let's see what he's got. But I'm all good with him not getting a ton of carries against Illinois State.
Yeah, you don't need it. And I'll say this for fans who kind of geek out over the film and the player comparisons. When I was watching Ott, the thing that jumped out to me was his balance and was his acceleration through the hole. And that's Kennedy Brooks all day. That
I agree.
is, to me, he felt like a Kennedy Brooks type player watching the Cal film. There was some games, D-Mac, where he went for 2, 3, almost 300 yards over in Cal when he was healthy. So the important piece will be keeping him healthy, and you don't need to blow your wad essentially in a game like this when you've got Ott and Barnes and then X Rob. So yeah, I like the X Rob pick. I'm still going to go Blaylock just for kicks and giggles. And I think a young guy, we've seen young players in games like this under Stoops get a lot of run. You think back to, number 20 who played, a year, maybe 2 ago, last year, Sam Franklin, was it Franklin who ended? Yeah, the player who ended up getting a lot of carries to keep the other guys healthy. Go back in years prior to that. So there is some precedent, but I think X Rob's a good pick. I want to move over to the defensive side of the ball before we end on some material discussion. And you go into a game like this, DMAC, OU's defense is one of the best in college football this upcoming season. Nationally, they're getting a lot of respect. Their front seven, potentially dominant, has some NFL guys up there. Regardless of what old Carlos thinks, they got some guys who are going to be in the in the thick of it. So when you're in a game like this, DMAC, and it's a team like Illinois State, where you should, by all sense of the word, dominate the game, there shouldn't be a lot of scenarios where you are giving up big plays, getting popped over the top, giving up long drives. And in the past 2 years, we've seen Venables defenses where until they've played higher level competition, they have handled teams like this when it comes to the defensive side of the football. But for you as a former player, a guy who played safety in high school, a player who understands what's going on, X's and O's on both sides of the ball, when you are so dominant and you are overmatching your opponent, what are the critiques that come out of a game like this? Are there things on the film where you're like, the fan might see that goes down as an incompletion, but as a player or as a coach, I see this, this, and this. What are some of those things to take us behind the curtain a little bit?
Yeah, I think the first thing is dominating the line of scrimmage. We talked about this a ton our first year because we didn't do it well, which is that 1 yard line, right? So when the ball is snapped for the novice participant, watcher, whatever fan, they're just watching the ball. What the people who really understand the game are watching is where is the line of scrimmage after the snap of the ball. In other words, is the game being played 1 yard in the backfield, or is the game being played 1 yard after the line of scrimmage? And that is an indicator that'll let you know what the third and fourth quarter are going to look like. And really, it could be first quarter. If they climbing up on your backers in the first quarter and every snap of the ball, the offensive line is 1.5 yards down the field and a guard is climbing to a backer, you in trouble. You are in trouble. Or if at the snap of the ball, the entire game, that defensive line has moved the line of scrimmage 1 yard into the quarterback's face, they are in trouble. That takes away action. That takes away drop back, right? That takes away the ability to do a lot of things. Now you got to start rolling out. Now you got to start trying to guess. You don't just have those predictable analytics that you're going to be able to say, okay, down in distance, if their front four is just whooping your ass, then you got to, all the analytics go out. Now it's just Jimmy's and Joe's, and let's just see who's going to play ball. I will say this. There are some games where you win the line of scrimmage and there's a super talented quarterback and they can make up for it. And so with the potential for a dual threat guy and really BV since I was playing, Mike Stoops would want to be in man. BV would want to be in zone so that his backers could keep their eye on the football. I would be willing to bet we're going to try to put a lot of pressure with our front four and really allow the Kip Lewises and the Kendall Daniels and the McKenzie or whoever it is playing Mike the ability to see football, run football, tackle football, so that there aren't opportunities for a quarterback to have everybody's turning their back chasing players and the quarterback can break a tackle or two and go for a big yardage, right? So expect us to play a ton of zone. I think we'll probably show some cover two where we're up 2 or 3, 4 yards off the line of scrimmage just to not give them a ton of cushion pre-snap. But I don't think you're going to see a ton of man unless it's second and medium, third and long, and we want to have 2 high safeties and maybe just manned up on the outside and we zone up on the inside. But as it relates to what are we looking for?
Sooner H-back Damian Mackey was not after the game.
Whoa, what was that?
Oh, that was weird. There's a little teaser for folks later in the deal.
Oh, hold on. That was what was that, bro? What calling my name mid podcast?
We'll get to that.
Were you about to cue up something? No, but in all seriousness,
yeah, it's coming.
I think it'll be important to see our D line more so than even our offensive line needs to play well. Our D line needs to crush their O line and put them in positions where they have limited options. And the OC has to pull out all the stops to keep the pressure off of them.
Yeah, it's going to be a game that Oklahoma should, hold this team fewer than 14 points, man. The defense, if expectations are met, that they should be able to handle business. You get some surprises. The quick, just kind of side tangent. How incredible was it, or maybe not, to see South Florida handle Boise State like they did? It just shows you how impactful. I know they lost a couple of players around Genty, but just how impactful one single player like that was.
Listen, I watched most of the third quarter. I will say the ball bounced a couple times in South Florida's advantage, and then South Florida took advantage of their quarterback coming back from injury, and he's a dual threat guy who was really good 2 seasons ago. So they had a Q who could make plays on his own. In fact, he had a really good scramble around the left side for a touchdown, I think, to put him up 10 or 17 in the third quarter. But I mean, listen, that's why players matter. Right, I think Mateer is worth 2 Ds. By the way, somebody said Jackson balled out. He did not ball out. Jackson Arnold did what everybody knows he can do, which is if you have a lead, he's scared to pull the trigger. He's going to run the ball. And against a Big 12 defense, I'm not surprised that he had some lanes. If people think Jackson Arnold's going to run for 100 yards a game and stay healthy all season, you're in for a rude awakening. And that's not to hate on the kid, but if you watch that game, and I was able to watch about 2 quarters, there's plenty of quick game and or RPO action on half the field where there's a guy there and he didn't throw the ball. It's the same thing we saw in films where the coach was complaining. It's the same thing we saw as fans last year. And think if that game is flipped and they're down 7 and they can't just run the football because they have a lead. I was not thoroughly impressed. In fact, I saw the game and I was like, man, I'm glad he's not a quarterback. And that's not hating. It's just the fact I want my quarterback to put pressure on the defense throwing the ball, which is going to open up even more lanes for running the ball. Good win for him. He's going to get some confidence coming off this win. But I think his OC and head coach are both going to continue to say, can he throw the ball when we need him to?
Yeah, and that was what OU really really struggled with him at, and he wasn't, when teams sold out to stop him, he wasn't an elusive enough runner like a Hawkins who was able to shake free against Tennessee, against Auburn, have big explosive runs. And you're right, if OU had been in the Big 12 a year ago, I don't think it's crazy to say they go 9-3, 10-2. Right, because you don't have losses to Tennessee and to South Carolina, Ole Miss,
Carolina, LSU, right? You don't have Texas. If Texas is there, you're playing Colorado, who went 9-3. Colorado went 9-3. Granted, I'm a Shadur fan, and I think people are trying to overstate, what his dad did for him. Kid can play ball, but I think we had enough talent. That offense was still terrible though. K-State would have kicked our ass last year.
A team like K-State,
Texas Tech would have kicked our ass last year.
Texas Tech. Yeah, it would have been an interesting thing to see, just how that team plays out in the Big 12. But last year in the SEC, there wasn't a single team at the top who had a one-dimensional quarterback.
Yep.
South Carolina, nope. And he could run, really well.
Sellers I think is the best quarterback in the conference, not Mateer. People sleep on him.
He might be. Jackson Dart, not one-dimensional. NFL. Nussmeier, not one-dimensional. The kid at Vanderbilt who surprised some people, play some games.
Baller
could throw the ball, could run the ball. You could argue that Jackson might have been the most one-dimensional quarterback in the league. Missouri, he wasn't one-dimensional.
The starting quarterback's a dog. He just couldn't stay healthy. Yeah, he's 100%. A good player.
Yeah, if you go down, Texas viewers, right? Even Manning, I would argue, was more of a passer, complete passer of the football than Arnold was. So you cannot win. Your ceiling is about 7 or 8 wins if you have a quarterback that cannot complete forward passes on a consistent basis. So leads me to this, D-Mac, and we're about 36 minutes in. We're not going to be super long here tonight, guys, and we're burning the midnight oil, and I want to do something fun with Damian before we get out of here. But
yeah, I don't know what the hell that video was, bro.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's put final predictions on this upcoming season for Oklahoma, and got to have a stake bet. Need something to put it on this year. So let's go record first. We'll go stake bet, and then we'll lay claim to what we think the score will be tomorrow. And we'll go down, quickly some of the big games tomorrow and get our picks there. Guys, in the comments, give your prediction for tomorrow. If there's a big game you want to hear our thoughts on, write that game in the comments. We're going to go down the list. But D-Mac, you first on record. Where does Oklahoma finish record-wise in this year's campaign?
I don't pick losses in September, bro. You know that. I'm not picking a record until the preseason's over. So
okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Because I'm not going to say we're going to go 9-3 and then we're going to lose 3 games. Now, just like last year, I went to the Houston game. We should have freaking lost. We watched the Tulane game, and it was too close for comfort in the first, second, and third quarter. And then RMT comes and kicks ass in the fourth quarter. The first game, who we played, Temple. Yeah, that was they were terrible. But even when they looked terrible, we didn't look great. So when we don't look great against lesser competition, then I'll start saying, "Oh shit, we got some things to worry about," and I'll get a chance to peek at a couple other schools. I'm not picking records until the preseason, I'll pick records after this game because I am going to pick obviously what's going to happen with Michigan. I want to see how they look plus how we look, and that'll help me determine that game. But I will say this. If we aren't dramatically better running the football and pushing the ball down the field, and if we aren't dramatically dominant in the front seven, I'm going to be very disappointed.
D-Mac, I went through and tried to give as much of a thoughtful, process to the record picking as I could. And I know this may be, to quote you, some crimson colored glasses, but you go back a season ago, OU has 6 wins. They take care of business in the non-conference games. They should have taken care of. It didn't look pretty at times, but you get the W. You beat an Auburn, and you're right there with Missouri. You're right there with Ole Miss. You take Alabama to the woodshed, and when you dig into the advanced metrics defensively, I know there are some people who looked at the final score. You look at South Carolina, you look what LSU put on Oklahoma, and you look at the defense and you say the defense was not good a year ago. How can you expect them to handle business? What you don't see is that for 3 straight series, the defense handed the offense the ball, and that offense could have had 17 to 21 points. Easy. And could have stretched a lead. And then now the defense is playing with their hair on fire, their ears pinned back, and they're ready to make hay and make some explosive defensive plays. You go into the transfer portal. You get a player like Mateer. You get a guy who, I don't know if you've heard this, but OU dropped some stuff today, and they were talking about some of the throws. Granted, it's players talking about other players, so grain of salt. But it was very specific, and I've heard things similar. And they said the way to appreciate Mateer is that that Madden camera style, where you're from the back, and you see some of these windows that he's fitting passes into, and just how good of an arm talent he truly is. I don't think folks who are sleeping on Oklahoma, as you said, appreciate just how good of an arm Mateer has. I don't think people realize how good of an arm Baker had. Kyler was a little different story because he was a 5-star recruit. He had high expectations, but the wrong system when he was at A&M. So all that to say, you had a team a year ago with not just a bad offense, but historically bad, not just by OU standards, but by national standards. This season, you improve the defense on the margins. You bring in, now you got big aces at corner with guys like Eli Bowen potentially being your depth. You do lose a little bit at linebacker, but you add a handful of pieces here and there. Your Kendall Daniels, you have some development in a guy like Powers. You got a Jaden Hardy coming up in the ranks. All this to say, I think this team is entirely capable of going 10-2. I think the offensive upgrades in this upcoming season, especially with some of the games they get at home, you get LSU and Norman. You get Auburn and Norman, a team that's going to be, Jackson will be motivated for that game. It would be much worse if you're going to Auburn to play that and to play Jackson there. But you got them in Norman. Tennessee is going to be tough, but they're not the team that they were last year. So, final record prediction, crimson-colored glasses, if you will. I think this team has the potential to go 10-2. So, leads me to my next question. What is the stake bet for this season? Are we going receivers again? Are we going touchdowns? It's always got to be something like that. It can't be record or whatever. It's got to be a player-centered deal, and maybe something obscure. Which tight end leads the team in touchdowns?
See, that takes no skill. That's luck, and no, we're not doing that.
Let's go.
I will say this. Shout out to James Epley. He says whoever the top receiver is tomorrow, it won't be Barry Sharp. How hilarious is that?
Let's go.
I also called for James. I called Texas is going to get a rude awakening. The shortest preseason number one ranking they're going to have in the history of the program. It's the first time they've ever been a preseason number one in their program history right now, and they're going to lose tomorrow. For the stake, I'd be down to do running backs. Who has the most touchdowns or who has the most yards, just because there's some, there's the new guy who, economically we think he's going to get a ton of run. There's X-Rob who made a splash last year. There's Blaylock who's making some noise this year. Then there's the Barnes community who, Barnes has been around forever. Maybe he turns the leaf in this new offense. So, we could do running backs, yards, TDs, whichever one you want to do.
Let's go touchdowns. Unless you guys in the comments have some other ideas, we'll be.
I got X-Rob. You can't have X-Rob. I got X-Rob.
I am gonna go. I think you might be surprised with this, but I have some logic for touchdowns. If we're going purely touchdowns,
if you say Barnes, I'm gonna be like, what kind of stake do I get? Say Barnes. Say Barnes.
I am gonna go Blaylock for touchdowns. Only because I think I've heard he can catch the ball really well. And he's a guy who can get passes out in the flat. He is a guy who potentially, he has some ferocity when it comes to blocking and is a nasty blocker out there, but He's a guy who gets between the tackles very fast. I'm not saying you see a Kewan Jones kind of situation, but Ott is a little more of a patient runner, even down at the goal line, as sometimes at Cal that actually got him into trouble, where he should have just hit the hole quick and didn't, should have fought through contact and didn't. I think Blaylock leads the team in the running back room. I think he leads the team in touchdowns. So, score for tomorrow, D-Mac. What do you have? Does OU get the win? Do they beat Illinois State? Do they take home the W? What do we got?
First of all, I'm feeling really confident, so I want my filet medium rare. The freshman running back is not going to be getting goal line carries, so that's your pick. Own it. I'm just letting you know. The 235-pound sophomore who ran through Alabama is going to be the guy they're going to be calling on to get those goal line TDs. You watch.
I'll see you at the end of the year.
You will, because when I win, I will be in Norman to get my filet medium rare, sauteed mushrooms, no side sauce. Score tomorrow. I think we score 7 touchdowns. I think we score 4 or 5 with the ones. Probably kick a field goal. So let's go 52. Let's go 52. Do we give up a TD or do we? Nah, let's go 52-3. By the way, I'm saying the score of what I expect them to deliver. I don't want to have a quarter where we punt 3 times. I'm gonna be pissed. I don't want to have a half where one or two of our offensive linemen are getting whooped and we can't run what we need to run. I don't want to have 2 possessions where the running back's running with his eyes closed, right? Like, I expect a team with an OC like Arbuckle to know who they are, know the personnel in the given play. Like, those are the things that could killed us last year, is we're watching the play like, why is that player getting that ball, right? We should have the other guy in for this route or this run or this combo, right? I think Arbuckle's going to clean that up. I think we're going to identify the schemes we want to run with based upon the personnel we have, and we're going to stick to those. 52-3. Mateer runs for 2 TDs. He throws for 260 yards and 3 TDs. I actually believe they're going to let Hawkins play week 1. I think they're going to let him play, and I think he's going to go out there and cook, because he's going to be going against 2s or a worn down defense. And I think defensively, they said they want to be a top 5 defense. These are the games. By the way, the Georgias, the Bamas, and the OU teams of the early 2000s, the reason we were able to have such, by the Michigans, right? Even though the Big Ten doesn't have explosive offenses like the SEC does, you don't become a top 5 defense if you give up 14 in a game like this. If you give up 479 yards in a game like this, you get your top 5 defense if you play a bunch of loosey-loos in the preseason and you beat them all 49-0. That's how you become a top. Seriously, right? Because you're going to have some games in conference where you're going to give us some yards, you're going to give us some TDs. You can't get a top 5 defense and you look mediocre or average against Illinois State. I don't give a damn their quarterback is dual threat. So they got football players. You know what I'm saying? They're going to have some players that are decent. We need to whoop that ass. 52-3. We need to dominate if we're going to be a top 5 defense.
I think we are going to, as fans, be very excited to see an offense that is dedicated and striving to start fast. I think that's going to be something we haven't seen in a little bit.
Yeah.
Arbuckle is of that Lincoln Riley, Sarkisian, Kiffin mindset where he doesn't want to play around. He wants his best stuff early, and he wants to help put teams away. That's why Riley was able to have some of the games he did, because he would be up on Baylor 28-zip. You know, the final might be, 56-42, but man, the lead early on, it mattered, right? So I think that will be the biggest surprise. I would not be shocked if OU was up something like 35 or 42-3 at half. I think this is the kind of game where you want to send a message.
Yep.
Satania is, SEC top shelf good when it comes to what he could potentially produce. Mateer is very, very accurate. You're going to outbody everybody at the receiver position. You should outbody everybody on the line of scrimmage. And at running back, they have a handful of guys who can break off some big runs. And even X-Rob in kind of that 20 to 30 range where he doesn't have to run 60 yards, he could also break off some big explosive plays. And that's what's going to lead to me, D-Mac, to a 60-plus performance. I'm going OU 62-7. I think they get one score late in the game, but I think the defense really fights to hold the shutout. I think that's going to be a big pride point for this program this season. It is not just winning the games, but dominating on that defensive side of the ball. And get me down for 62-7. OU put 60 up there, and they get off to a good start for the points per game metric. So let's move on to a couple games tomorrow. Kind of heard what you thought about Texas, Ohio State. Is there a reason, anything you're hearing? But what is just your inkling on why Ohio State is able to get the win over Texas?
Aside from having more talent and playing at home, Texas is a team we all know, including the Sark years, that when the expectations are really high, they have a tendency to falter. The schedule sets up for them again to have a very successful year. So this is a game that Ohio State knows they need this game to be considered a championship caliber team again. I think the biggest factors are the lack of experience on the offensive line, and the receiver position, and the quarterback position, and the running back position on offense. They lost their top 2 running backs, their top 3 receivers, their top 4 offensive linemen, and the starting quarterback. Yes, they've replenished their ranks, but that synergy, that chemistry that happens when guys have been playing together for 2-3 years, it matters. And of course, we heard some rumors that Arch was being outplayed in some components or some portions of fall camp. I think this is a game. I think he throws 2 picks. This could be a game where he gets injured. Arch is a guy who I've watched since high school. When things break down, you know what Arch does? He tucks his head and runs because he's been the best athlete on the field in high school. And in some of the games, the last 2 seasons, especially that Big 12 year, he has a couple big runs where as a true freshman, he was able to do 40, 50, 60-yard runs. He's going to run against the wrong person against Ohio State. He could potentially, and I'm not wishing injuries on a player, but I just know that, or I suspect that when things break down, his intuition is going to say run the football, and there's going to be a backer or a safety waiting on him there who are going to be more than happy to lean into him. I don't want to say I told you so if it happens, but I'm just telling you what I've seen of him. If Texas struggles, it's also going to be very difficult for him. It's going to be like Chris Sims. We see Chris Sims in 2000. Chris Sims came out the gates really good for Texas. That Big 12 game, we jumped on them so fast, you could see that the pressure was mounting because he was Phil Sims' son. He was a top 5-star quarterback in America, right? They literally benched Major Applewhite, who 2 consecutive years whooped our ass. And they benched him for Sims. They're going to force Arch down everybody's throat. And if things don't go well, I think it's going to be a lot of pressure for him. And without a bunch of experience with the O-line, with the skill guys, it's going to be kind of on him. And Ohio State is probably one of the 3 or 4 teams in America who has more talent than Texas. Like, definitely has more talent than Texas. And they've got a receiver who's probably the best receiver the last 10 years. And so they're going to have a guy they can hang their hat on going to go making a play. And Texas just doesn't have an experienced version of that guy. I don't know what their new guys can do. They may have better guys than the guys that went to the league. I just know I'm not going to bank on week 1 guys going against Ohio State talent being able to just ass kick fresh out of high school or the transfer portal. So give me Texas to lose by 10.
Man, you know what? It last season, there were people who said, Arch Manning should have been playing late in the year. Man, Sarkisian is a guy who he knows what he's doing. He is an offensive-minded, brilliant offensive mind. if Arch gave them the better chance to win in those games, especially with the last name Manning, he would have been playing in those games if he felt that Ewers was not the guy to take him home in some of those battles. I'm kind of with you. I think it could end up being close, but Arch, we haven't seen who he is yet. I want to ask you about Clemson and LSU. I think Clemson is on a mission this season. I
You
think
said that
last
last week.
year, I think it didn't end right. I could easily see Clemson, and we've seen LSU in the beginning of seasons. They
struggle.
notoriously struggle, and Brian Kelly teams notoriously struggle early on in the year. They are strong to finish. I see Clemson winning this game by 14 points or more.
Toss up for me. I both teams have a lot of new talent. I think the mainstays are both quarterbacks, right? You got Nussmeier and I forgot the kid's name. Transferred in from A&M a couple years ago. Kleinman or
Klubnik.
Yeah. I think Clemson's probably gonna have a little bit better defense, and
it's at Clemson. It is being played there.
I want the SEC teams to play as well as possible so that when we beat them, we get more kudos. I would not be upset if LSU won, but I'm actually not a big Nussmeier fan, and I don't know what all the hoopla. I saw him at A&M, and he was regular degular, and he got hot the second half of last year, and he's got the skill guys to get there, but like he's not a guy who's going to put pressure on you with his feet, which means if you can get to their offensive line, you can get to him. And so I kind of like Klubnik more. He's obviously a dual threat guy who can go 40, 50 to the house. He's kind of like a Jackson Arnold, probably a little bit more explosive, and he's got a liver arm.
100% liver arm.
Yeah. So I agree with that. But if you made me pick, I'm picking Clemson home game. I think the defense is better over there, and they've got a quarterback who can beat you with his arm, his legs, and with his legs to beat you with his arm, which is a big deal in college football. Give me Clemson 7.
Okay. The last one, Alabama, and this is a kind of a sleeper one right here. Afternoon game, Alabama, Florida State. Florida State coming in this one unranked.
Yep.
Alabama 8th. A lot of expectations. Disappointing season a year ago. You dropped the game to Oklahoma, and that was just a heartbreak for Bama fans. Sorry, it is what it is. To lose to Jackson Arnold in that way, you take that out. But Florida State, to me, D-Mac, a sleeper team this year. They needed a year to recoup, kind of refill the cupboard. We know that the team and the coach is capable of building a big-time program and building a big-time team. They were pretty aggressive in the transfer portal. I'm trying to remember quarterback name, and it escapes me. But where do you see this game going? And do you think Alabama is back to that? DeBoer had a year of grace, if you will, off of the Saban, years. Do you think Alabama is back in the thick of it this season?
You know what? I'm going to be very interested in quarterback play. Let me tell you, if DeBoer has a quarterback who can beat you with his arm, Milroe missed a lot of money. He had receivers, and they had to kind of limit some of what that offense does. Go back and watch the the UW offense, and it's a totally different animal than what they do at Alabama. I think Bama wins by 2 scores. I think the over-under is 14.5. So I think Bama's, or the handicap's 14.5. So I think Bama's giving 14.5 points. I think Bama wins by 14. They might win by 21. Bama is the type of team that if they impose their will early, FSU could fold and give up a ton. But I think Bama wins by 14 points. I actually don't think it's close. I think they out-physical those guys. Florida State is a paper-mache version of the team they were 10, 15 years ago when they had some of those really good teams with Jameis Winston and what's my running back's name, whose little brother is now in Buffalo now.
Dalvin Cook.
Cook.
And then Benjamin.
Cook.
Benjamin was a dog.
Yeah, I think they're a paper mache version of that team right now until they show me otherwise. I just remember Georgia Tech beat the brakes off of them last year. Like, it wasn't even a contest. Week 1, I believe it was. So give me Bama 14. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, and I forgot that Gus Malzahn took over offensive.
I saw that.
Yeah, so Gus Malzahn, they get their quarterback. That's why it's Tommy Castellanos from Boston College, spent some time at UCF, was kind of like mid-tier in the transfer portal rung, right? Was not the worst guy.
Is he the quarterback? Hold on. Is he the quarterback last year when Boston College played Florida State? While he was healthy, they were competitive, and then he went down.
Yes.
And then once he got hurt, the game, like, they fell off a cliff. If that's the case, he's a good player.
Yeah. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, man. Malzahn has built some good offenses as OC. I think that is where, not to hate or throw shade, but that's where Riley is kind of the best fit. But D-Mac, about to get out of here tonight. But before we do, Sooner Nation, got a quick treat for you guys. And D-Mac, I'll be honest, didn't know where this came from. My little brother sent this to me this evening. And I think fans will get a treat out of this. And honestly, when I saw it, I'd never seen this before. A little inspiring for this upcoming season, but this is a throwback. Folks, I want to show you guys something that was shot over to me, and I'm going to add it to the stage. And I just want to get your initial reaction, D-Mac.
How do you explain this to the people who didn't think you had a chance?
I tell you what, man, this is a team game. You need 11 guys on the field doing the best they can. Everybody thought we was a bunch of whipping boys, and we took that personal. No disrespect to any team, but OU number 1. And we knew in our heart we was number 1. So we just had to come out today and represent. And then we just did it as a team effort, and God did it for us.
Before the game, did the offense talk about patience?
You know, we know.
Wow, what you felt? I actually seen it before. I've seen it before, obviously, but how you pull that out of the woodworks,
no
bro?
Idea.
Wildin'. Okay, yeah. Dan Dick, the young lad. By the way, for those of you, some people are like, I don't remember you. It's all good. Go back and go do your research. Google me. Google. There's a highlight tape. I promise you, there's one on YouTube. 16 minutes. That's salute. A salute, bro. I actually haven't seen that in God knows how long.
That's killer.
That was literally me. That's kind of crazy.
At the end, was the guy pulling you because you needed to? Do you remember that at all, or is that just a blur?
Like it was yesterday. Yeah. Now, by the way, to your question, we had celebrated on the field for however long, and Bob wanted us to go in and do our celebratories in the locker room before we came back out. I think we had permission to go back out, and so we all went back out to the game day stage, and we took a picture on the stage, the whole 9. That was the security guard. I forgot his name. Cool dude, but he was hating on my shine. You see that? I was trying to get my shine on. I was trying to get my ESPN live. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I remember it though. Security guard.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, D-Mac, real quick closing thoughts before we get out of here, and we're going to wrap up the pre-show. Guys, game starts at 5 o'clock tomorrow. SEC ESPN Plus is where you can find the game, and then post-game show right here, Barry and Mack Show after the game. This is where you will want to be. We're going to go over everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And guys, if there's one thing you say about the show, we're pretty honest, but D-Mac, take us out. Closing thoughts.
You know what I just want to say, bro? If you guys aren't on OU Insider, I'm currently doing a series called Red October. I was asked to really just go into details about that season and that experience, and I really speak to a lot of first-hand accounts and actually tell very nuanced and detailed stories about that championship 3-game series. I put the first edition out. In fact, let me just say this, and I'm being dead ass since I'm bringing it up. If someone would be interested in partnering with me in writing a book called The Red October, I guarantee you, I'll make it worth your while. If you go on OU Insider and read the prequel, kind of the prep of it, you'll see it's a pretty in-depth and fact-based account of that season, and I'm looking forward to really diving deep into it, and I had a good time. Right. By the way, Barry, I wrote it in one, like there wasn't like edits and version 3.0.
Wow.
I just wrote it because I remember exactly how it all happened. Yeah, so that's fun, and also I'll be on some pregame. What's the radio station? The Ref, is that what it's called? The
Yep.
Ref? Yep. So I'll do some pregame stuff this season. Looking forward to doing that. Looking for Barry and I have some stuff up our sleeve for things we're going to be doing later on this season. And then I think we said, what do we say? 5,000 subs, and I'll give away some
5,000. That's what we're
I'll
shooting
give away
for.
some championship memorabilia, guys. We get to 5,000 subs. I'm gonna give away some championship, or get some signatures from some of my championship teammates to give away to some of you, to some lucky subscriber. Plug in. We're committed to 2 to 3 shows every single week, telling the truth, not holding back, no sugarcoating. We have no what's the word? We have no affiliations to, ask us within the program. We're gonna call it when we see it when it's amazing, and we're gonna call it when we see it if it's not. And they better still let me in there when I'm in town, because damn it, blood, sweat, and tears for the Oklahoma Sooners, and the truth is the truth. Appreciate you guys for always locking in. You guys are with us. It's 50 people on the call live, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning in Oklahoma.
Crazy.
That says a lot. Oh, post game. We'll have the post game drop for anybody else. So when the game is over and you're in traffic on your way home, be looking for the post game, and then of course I'll drop the 10 thoughts later that night or the next morning.
Yep. And if you're not in the members only section, for all of the recruiting guys who love the highlight videos, the analysis on that as the season goes on, I'm going to do just some very informal watch alongs, and you guys can join me over there. Just some easy content to digest. We're going to play some highlight tapes and just get my immediate thoughts on guys, like what I am seeing from an evaluation eye, like what pops off the tape. What are things where you can tell, like, this guy's really fast, this guy's not, this guy's got wiggle, this guy doesn't, this guy's got an arm, this guy doesn't. And we're going to talk about it and some of the things that are very nuanced, but that you can see on tape. But if you're not an OU Insider, go over there, get yourself a membership right now, today. Do it before the game kicks off, because I promise, don't want to miss 10 thoughts. You don't want to miss some of the post-game stuff I'll be posting on there. And Brandon and Parker, they're killing it. Phenomenal job there, bringing you guys content, update, news, and the like. And as D-Mac said, working on some other things. But you'll have to find that out in the next episode. As always, Sooner Nation, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon.